You have a significant sentence hanging over your head. It's not the max the state asked for, but it is still significant. I'm not undermining any of your prior history. I'm looking at this case.
Blueface didn't just walk out of prison on November 3rd, he walked out as a different man. And that isn't internet exaggeration. We can see it clearly in the first home video he posted after serving roughly 21 months of a 4-year probation violation sentence. His face is now a chaotic grid of corporate logos. His body looks heavier, his movements are slower, and his voice sounds flatter than fans remember from 2023. We're not just looking at a rapper coming home from a tough stint in a California state facility. We're looking at someone who, according to longtime followers and industry bloggers, seems spiritually switched off, moving through his own welcome home moment, like he's reading from a script he didn't write.
So the judge did grant him time served. He said that basically, best case scenario, he'll be back by summer.
This next summer.
Oh, Blueface is calling right now.
The timing makes this even harder to dismiss. Blueface legally, Jonathan Jamal Porter was locked up in early 2024 after a judge finally revoked his previously suspended sentence over the 2021 North Hollywood security incident. Hit him with the maximum 4 years and sent him to a level 3 prison he later described in a March 2025 interview as a lot of misery. Official records list his admission date as September 4, 2024, with a parole window projected closer to December 2025. Yet he surfaces at home nearly a month early, on November 3rd, looking like a walking billboard for Walgreens and Chase. He went in with his signature face and comes out just under 2 years later with his entire identity literally stamped over. And the rollout didn't start with him either. Before Blueface ever showed his own face, his parents were already fueling speculation. On November 2nd, his mother Shariza posted a cryptic Instagram story of someone under the covers, as his son Javon walked in smiling, with the caption, "Thanking God." Meanwhile, his father Jonathan Porter Sr. declared, "Today is the end of a chapter in my family's life. Tomorrow is the beginning of a new chapter." That was one day before the official home video dropped. One day before the world saw the new face. You can see how that sequence from the coded posts to the reveal of a heavily branded rapper set off observers, who were already primed to look for something deeper than a simple early release.
Not as of now.
Yeah.
Because she's incarcerated, but hopefully when she gets out, she'll come bring him up here or whatnot.
Then comes the first clear visual shock, the tattoos. On camera, the Blueface we knew from his 2018 viral breakout run is gone, replaced by a forehead, cheeks, and jaw covered in random company symbols, fashion marks, and sports-style logos that insiders say don't match any known gang signatures inside California's system. This isn't a themed piece or an artistic sleeve. These are scattered brand marks like Chase Bank and Walgreens stacked in a way that makes no commercial sense and carries no obvious personal meaning. When fans freeze-frame the November 3rd clip, they point out not just the ink, but the eyes. Flat, unfocused, with an energy that doesn't match the defiant still that dude 2 years later. Line he throws at the camera. Publicly, Blueface has tried to laugh it off. In one early post-release conversation, when pressed about the face logos, he shrugged and said, "I got tired of my face, man. I had that face for 28 years. I wanted a new face."
We vibing right now, but you know when that fitness get involved, you know it might get a little weary.
On the surface, that sounds like classic Blueface bravado, the same offhand tone he used when talking about messy relationships and online beef. But when we line that up with how subdued he seems elsewhere, and with the way former associates describe his energy as heavy and checked out, that one-liner starts to feel less like a joke and more like a pre-approved cover story for something he does not want to unpack. Meanwhile, his own family's language around this transition has added to the unease rather than calming it. The father's end of a chapter and new chapter framing reads less like a simple parallel celebration and more like a coded acknowledgement that everyone close to him knew the man walking in back in September 2024 would not be the same one stepping out in November 2025. Sources familiar with the family say those posts were not random. They were timed to the day and hinted that whatever was coming had been anticipated for weeks. When we put that next to the sudden corporate branding on his skin, the question becomes unavoidable. How much did his inner circle know? And how much did they accept as the price of getting him home early?
Because it's so early right now, they just want to see how I program, make sure I'm going to follow the rules before they let me travel.
I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to, but the night that this shooting happens, like, what happened?
Yeah. I mean, everybody know about that.
This is at Floyd's strip club, right?
No, this was at a different club. No, this was.
Or was at a strip club, though, right?
Yeah, it was at a strip club.
Inside conspiracy circles, the first explanation that took off was the prison angle. Former inmates and gang culture commentators claimed that face tattoos are often used inside as humiliation, way to mark someone permanently for entertainment or control. In that reading, Blueface may have agreed to become a human drawing board rather than end up as someone's vulnerable target in a level 3 yard. Under that theory, the randomness of the logos makes sense, as mockery it's meant to look ridiculous. The law enforcement consultants who track Prison Inc. say something is off because the logos on his face do not map neatly onto any known crew numbers or coded messages normally seen in that environment. That's where the second, darker interpretation starts creeping in. And this is where Katt Williams' name comes crashing into the story.
I think the baby looks like him, honestly.
You don't think the baby looks nothing like you at all?
What you think?
In his now legendary 2024 club, Shay Shay Sit Down, Katt Williams laid out his views on what he calls humiliation rituals, moments where entertainers are pushed into dresses, masks, shaved heads, or public embarrassments as proof of submission. Two powerful forces. At one point, he challenges the room. Show me one person who ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully. Using that to argue these symbolic acts are part of a repeatable ritual that opens doors for the chosen and breaks down anyone who refuses. He isn't joking about wardrobe. He's describing a system that rewards compliance and punishes resistance. Katt has also been explicit that this isn't a cute metaphor for PR. Stunts, it's part of what he calls the age of truth, a moment when the shadow networks we label the Illuminati, or the people who run the world, are less able to hide because their old gatekeepers are aging out. In a 2024 profile, he said the people behind these organizations are now 80 to 100 years old, and that with enough courage, curiosity, and money, anyone can dig into how these groups actually operate. His self-assigned mission, as he frames it, is to study how powerful entities stay powerful and why vulnerable people are taken advantage of through pipelines that, in his words, all exist, and it's all real. When we hear that, and then watch Blueface walk out branded from forehead to jaw, the overlap between theory and visual evidence becomes hard to ignore. Katt's former partner, Hazel, accidentally adds another twist to this web.
Last time me and Blue did it was right before he went to jail. So if I was pregnant, I could be like 2 months, 2.5 months. So
in early 2025, reports confirmed that Hazel and Blueface were casually dating after years of on and off contact, with sources saying they've known each other since around 2018. Hazel, of course, isn't just a reality star from Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. She's also the same woman who has spoken publicly and affectionately about her past relationship with Katt Williams, praising his intelligence and guidance. Now, in the months after Blueface's release, we suddenly have a triangle of connections. The rapper with the suspicious new face, the reality personality who once leaned on Katt as a mentor, and the comedian who has spent decades warning about submission rituals, occult symbolism, and industry puppetry. Industry sources look at that proximity and wonder if Blueface might have heard Katt's ideas firsthand long before this prison bid. If Hazel was around Katt during the years when he was already telling friends he wanted to know things around the corner before others so he could alert his people, then it isn't far-fetched to think those conversations might have echoed into Blueface's orbit. That makes the post-brazen optics even stranger. How does a man who allegedly brushed up against someone who exposes humiliation rituals step out looking, on camera, like a textbook example of one?
Hello, this is a free call from an inmate in the men's central jail.
At the same time, Blueface's personal life has become a rolling advertisement for chaos, which only strengthens the theory that his spirit has been systematically divided. Earlier this year, he went on podcasts reviving a allegation that Chrisean had a private encounter with Offset, while Offset was still publicly married to Cardi B, igniting a scandal both Offset and Rock denied, and one that reportedly contributed to Cardi's final estrangement before her 2024 divorce filing. That choice to drag an old allegation back into the light just as he's trying to re-enter the public eye reads to some insiders as a man grasping for relevance. To others, as someone being nudged to generate as much messy noise as possible. Meanwhile, his co-parenting dynamic with chrisean has only grown more hostile, which feeds directly into the image of a fractured, easily manipulated figure. In recent interviews, he described leaving her emotionally in the desert while urging her to become more practical about shared parenting, only for her to go live and accuse him of exploiting compensated topics and failing their son. Their feud then spiraled into public meltdowns around his prison release, with his first baby mama, Jaden Alexis, calling Rock a crackhead on livestream and threatening to pull her own children from the situation if boundaries weren't respected. The more Blueface's domestic life unravels in the open. the more he looks like the perfect candidate for the kind of breaking and remaking Katt Williams has spent years dissecting. Even the way Blueface talks about his time inside hints at a man caught between genuine growth and something more performative.
Like, what's your mental like? You straight?
Oh yeah, no, I'm chilling, man. I'm in my environment. You know, I'm always soaked up and adapt to it. So.
In one post-release conversation, he apologizes to a past shooting target, saying he didn't mean to cause harm and mentioning classes he took in a program he jokingly calls Civilization University. On paper, that sounds like rehabilitation, but when we compare it to the blank stare, the corporate face stamps, and his sudden talk of putting on 60 extra pounds in prison for fights and fades, as he told streamer DDGIT, starts to look more like someone reciting the rehabilitation script, while his appearance tells a completely different story. The physical bulk up became another talking point. Blueface claims he intentionally binged on mashed potatoes and oatmeal with commissary money until he was nearly Sakal, so he could handle confrontation behind bars, and doffed a release angle for a money fight with Jake Paul from a new heavyweight frame. That would be a standard post-prison pivot for a chaos-driven entertainer, not for the fact that every new interview and every new stunt is competing with the silent message on his forehead. Fans aren't fixated on his boxing ambitions. They're zooming in on the Chase logo by his eyebrow and asking why a man who once bragged about independence now looks like he signed his face away.
I see what happened. You all right, bro? You good? That's where I f***ed up at. I should have took care of my business, you know? We jump in the car with him. Follow the truck. Follow the truck. So, boom, long story short, man, we don't find the truck. I'm like, man, just go back to my car, bro. Like, you know, I'll go back to the cars.
And hovering over all of this is Katt Williams' broader claim that these rituals, whether dresses, shaved heads, or bizarre tattoos, are tied to what he calls Baphomet-style allegiance, a long-game normalization of symbols and gestures that signal loyalty to unseen benefactors. He argues that terms like transgender and the casual use of goat migrated from esoteric ritual language into mainstream slang, and that these shifts were not random but part of a slow conditioning process. If we apply that lens to Blueface's new look, the random brand marks stop being random and become part of a visual vocabulary, understood only by the people who decide which careers rise and which get quietly shut down, raising the question of whether this latest transformation is really about his choices at all, or about a message being sent through him to every other unstable celebrity watching from the sidelines and wondering what happens if they refuse to play along. Within hours of his release, Blueface's homecoming turned into a three-ring circus. Jaden Alexis and Chrisean Rock trading digital jabs, hazily trending for a nightclub moment. And that strange, soft-spoken apology clip being replayed and slowed down until it felt like a hostage confession watched frame by frame. We see the outline of classic damage control, but the timing makes it feel more like a smokescreen flood the feed with messy romance headlines. Drown out the deeper question of what actually happened to him inside and who now benefits from this new compliant version of Blueface who keeps saying he took a couple classes, while refusing to talk about what he really studied for almost 2 years.
She's pregnant then?
I don't know nothing about that.
Did she
girl.
know she was pregnant?
Nobody knows nothing about that girl.
Okay, well, allegedly.
From there, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. We've seen this playbook before. Britney Spears shaving her head and swinging umbrellas just before being locked into lifetime control. Stars disappearing behind masks, numbers, and symbols. Gucci Mane walking out leaner and quieter in sparking clone debates that never fully faded. Blah. Every time a star returns looking spiritually flipped, we see the same cycle: weight shifts, hollow eyes, sudden devotion to self-improvement, and a long silence about what projects, if any, they actually created while supposedly locked in with nothing but time. With Blueface, insiders quietly insist he did not pen a serious verse during that entire stretch, forcing us to ask what kind of lessons were really drilled into him if they weren't musical. Then there are the tattoos, the part nobody can scroll past. Walgreens centered like a bullseye, Chase hovering on the forehead, Major League Baseball, I sell, fashion and sports marks scattered like magnets on a fridge rather than any coherent street statement. Critics call it pure mockery, a way of turning a once cocky rapper into a walking corporate meme, a billboard that didn't even get paid in dollars for the ad space. Conspiracy channels go further, arguing that the placement is coded Brands standing in for teams, banks standing in for gatekeepers, logos as a new language only the highest levels of the industry understand. The way a shaved head or a bright red hat once said more to insiders than any caption ever
What I did was hearsay. Like, nope, nothing was on camera. Nobody said I did nothing. They just said, oh, it was shooting.
Okay, but since it was based on the robbery, but I mean, they could have been assholes.
No, they
and
could have
said,
been.
we're still going to charge you
Of
because
course,
you were
yeah.
out of danger at that point. Because, you know, there's certain rules. Like,
Yeah,
even,
no. It's just,
I remember when I got my gun in New York, they explained to me, like, okay, if someone robs your house,
yeah,
you
you're not
have a
allowed
gun,
to.
you have to run away.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
Because
chase
if you
them.
pull out your gun and they run and you shoot them in the back, you can get charged. So there's
And just when the focus should have been on that unsettling image, Blueface used his first big post-prison sit-down to drag an old landmine back into the room. The allegation that Chrisean Rock linked up with Offset while Offset was still publicly tied to Cardi B. A triangle that already helped fracture one of hip-hop's most watched marriages. It had been nearly 2 years since that story first surfaced. Both Offset and chrisean had pushed back and Cardi B had already moved on. But suddenly he's repeating the same bomb on a fresh platform. Why now? Why this topic at this exact moment when every major outlet is already pointed at his face? Either he's chasing chaos instinctively, or someone around him understands that reigniting A-list relationship drama is the fastest way to turn the public away from the more uncomfortable question: who else has a script with his name on it? When we step back, something colder emerges. Blueface is not the first rapper to walk the prison industry pipeline and come out changed, and he won't be the last. But he might be the first who looks like he was rebranded in real time, literally tagged and relaunched like a product line, his features turned into ad space and his scandals timed like a marketing campaign. If Katt Williams is even half right about the age of truth we're sliding into, then whatever reshaped Blueface behind those walls was not just punishment, it was a warning shot aimed at every unstable star watching and wondering what happens if they stop playing along. So now we have to ask, is this all random chaos, or are we watching a carefully staged transformation in plain sight? Drop your thoughts. Connect the dots we missed.